The transport station on Outpost Vega hummed with the usual chaos of 1,000 species moving through the galaxy's busiest hub. Marcus Webb sat at a corner table in the observation deck, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. He watched the crowds with the detached interest of someone who had seen it all before. That was when he noticed her. She was small, even for a Deltharian, with pale blue skin marked by darker streaks that ran down her arms like tears frozen in time. Her oversized coat, torn at the sleeves, hung on her thin frame. But it was her eyes that caught him. Large, violet eyes that darted nervously across the station floor, searching for something or someone. She was alone, and she looked terrified. Marcus had been a freight hauler for 15 years. He minded his own business, kept his head down, and never got involved in station politics or the personal dramas of others. But something about the girl made him pause. She approached a Vorlon. Merchant, her hands clasped together in what Marcus recognized as a Deltharian gesture of supplication. The merchant waved her away dismissively. She tried again with a human couple. They pulled their child closer and hurried past. The girl's shoulders slumped. She sat down on the cold metal floor, pulling her knees to her chest. Marcus found himself standing before he realized he had made a decision. "Hey, kid," he said, walking over to her. "You lost?" The girl looked up at him with those enormous eyes, and Marcus saw something in them that twisted his heart. It was not just fear. It was abandonment. "I have nowhere to go," she said in heavily accented standard. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Where are your parents?" "My mother died 2 cycles ago. My stepmother brought me here. She said I was too much trouble. She said I ate too much, cost too much, complained too much." The girl's voice cracked. "She left me here with nothing." Marcus crouched down to her level. Up close, he could see she was malnourished, her cheekbones too prominent, her limbs too thin. The streaks on her skin, which he had thought were natural markings, were actually scars. "Old ones. What's your name?" "Lyra? Lyra? I'm Marcus." "When did you last eat?" She thought about it, her brow furrowing. 3 days? Maybe 4? Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, hot and immediate. What kind of person abandoned a child at a transport station? "Come on," he said, offering his hand. "Let's get you some food." Lyra stared at his hand as if it might disappear. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. Her fingers were ice-cold. The station cantina was crowded, but Marcus found a booth in the back. He ordered soup, bread, protein bars, and a nutrient drink. When the food arrived, Lyra stared at it with an expression Marcus could not quite read. "Go ahead," he said gently. She ate slowly at first, as if afraid the food might be taken away. Then faster, her hands shaking slightly as she lifted the spoon to her mouth. Marcus watched, his jaw tight. "How old are you, Lyra?" 10 solar cycles, she said between bites. "Almost 11. 10 years old." Marcus had nieces and nephews around that age back on Earth. He thought of them, safe and loved and fed, and felt the anger return. "Your stepmother just left you here? No money, no plan, nothing?" Lyra nodded, not meeting his eyes. "She said I was a burden. She said my father would never have wanted me if he had known how difficult I would be." "That's not true." "How do you know?" Lyra looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "You do not know me. Maybe I am difficult. Maybe I do complain too much." "No child deserves to be abandoned," Marcus said firmly. "Whatever she told you, it was a lie to make herself feel better about doing something cruel." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, very softly, "What will happen to me now?" It was the question Marcus had been avoiding. Station authorities would take her to a youth facility if he reported her situation. He had heard stories about those places. Overcrowded, underfunded, species-specific prejudices. A Deltharian child, with no family and no advocate, would not fare well. He could walk away. File a report with station security on his way out. Leave this problem to people whose job it was to handle such things. He had a cargo run scheduled in 8 hours. His life was simple, solitary, and he liked it that way. Marcus looked at Lyra, at her thin shoulders and her hopeful, fearful eyes, and knew he could not walk away. "How would you feel about coming with me?" he asked. "I run freight between systems. It is not glamorous, but the ship has a spare cabin. You would be safe, fed, and warm." Lyra's eyes went wide. "You would take me? But you do not know me. I might be trouble. I might break things, or eat too much, or—" "Lyra," Marcus interrupted gently, "kids are supposed to eat, and everybody breaks things sometimes. That is called being human. Or, being alive in general. Why would you help me?" Her voice was so small, so confused. "What do you want from me?" The question hit Marcus harder than he expected. Of course she would ask that. Trust had been beaten out of this child, slowly and methodically. "I do not want anything from you," he said. "But I do have some rules if you are going to live on my ship. You have to go to school, even if it is remote learning. You have to clean up after yourself. And you have to talk to me if something is wrong. Can you do that?" Lyra nodded frantically. Yes, I can do all of that. I can do more. I can clean the ship. I can help with repairs. I can—" "Lyra," Marcus said softly, "you do not have to earn your place. You just have to be a kid, okay?" Tears spilled down her cheeks, leaving darker trails on her blue skin. "Please," she whispered, "please be my dad. I will behave. I promise I will behave. I will not be difficult. Please do not leave me here." Something in Marcus's chest cracked open. He reached across the table and took her small hand in his. "I am not going to leave you," he said. "We will figure this out together. And Lyra, you are allowed to be difficult sometimes. Kids are supposed to be difficult. It is in the job description." She laughed through her tears, a broken, hopeful sound. The paperwork was a nightmare. Marcus spent the next 6 hours navigating station bureaucracy, filing emergency guardianship forms, and arguing with officials who questioned why a human freight hauler wanted to take in a Deltharian orphan. He paid bribes he could not afford and called in favors he had been saving for emergencies. But by the time his ship, the Wanderer, was cleared for departure, Lyra had a temporary guardian identification chip and a place to sleep. The ship was not much to look at. 30 years old, patched in a dozen places, with engines that rattled when they pushed past half speed. But it was home, and now it was Lyra's home too. Marcus showed her the spare cabin. It was small, barely larger than a closet, with a narrow bed and a storage locker. But it was clean and warm. "This is mine?" Lyra asked, touching the wall as if it might vanish. "This is yours," Marcus confirmed. "We will get you some proper clothes at the next station, and some books if you like to read. Do Deltharians like to read?" "I do," Lyra said quietly. "My mother used to read to me before she got sick." "Then we will get you lots of books." That first night, Marcus woke to the sound of crying. He found Lyra curled up in her cabin, sobbing into her pillow. "Hey," he said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "What is wrong?" "I had a bad dream," she whispered. "I dreamed you changed your mind. I dreamed you left me at the next station." Marcus felt that crack in his chest widen. "I am not going to do that, Lyra. I made you a promise. People break promises." "Some people do," Marcus agreed, "but I do not. When I say something, I mean it." Lyra looked up at him with those huge, tear-filled eyes. "Can you stay? Just until I fall asleep?" "Sure, kid." Marcus sat there in the dim light of the cabin, listening to Lyra's breathing slow and even out. He thought about his quiet, simple life, and how it had just become infinitely more complicated. He did not regret it for a second dot as the wanderer hummed through the darkness of space. Marcus Webb looked down at the sleeping child in his care and made a silent vow. He would give her what she had lost: safety, stability, home, and maybe, just maybe, she would give him something he had not realized he was missing: a reason to stop drifting and start living.